Hi everybody, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. If you could please hit the like and subscribe button, I would gladly appreciate it. Um, I'm going to be talking about Jeremiah, the story of Jeremiah. That's what I'm going to be speaking on. I may not be able to finish it all, but I'm gonna, cause Jeremiah in the Bible is like one of the longest chapters. So I'm gonna do half today, and God willing, half tomorrow. Amen. Okay. I'm about to start. Jeremiah was a true prophet of God, who God called at 9 years old. His father's plans was for him to practice his religion, which at the time was sacrificing animals. But God had different plans for Jeremiah's life. And because Jeremiah lived his life according to God's way and God's will, and not his father disowned him. And a lot of the people in his hometown disliked him. He made a lot of enemies, um, just because he was a servant of God. He was a prophet, and he spoke the truth. Okay, because he spoke the truth, so Jeremiah left his father's house in his hometown to follow God. Jeremiah was like any other man. He wanted to get married, and he wanted to have kids. Okay. And he was in love with this young lady. But God told him he could not marry or have kids, or that they would die. This upset Jeremiah, and he cried out to God, asking God why. It disappointed him because he had plans to get married and have kids. Okay. And besides, he had already announced his wedding to his girlfriend's family and his family. But because of his obedience, Jeremiah knew he had to obey God, even though he was upset and he cried out to God. Or there would be consequences, because God told him that if he got married or had kids, they would die because of the sins of their ancestors, their fathers. Okay. He knew that there would be consequences to his actions. So Jeremiah had to tell the love of his life that they couldn't get married. She didn't understand. She told him to ask the king if they could get married. But Jeremiah said he didn't worship the king, he worshiped God. He didn't need the king's permission. He needed God's permission, and God told him no. So that was going to be the answer. It upset her too. Okay. Jeremiah, the prophet, warned King Nebuchadnezzar and his people to stop the sins that they were committing in the Lord's temple, or they would be destroyed. His father was disappointed because he didn't go with the crowd. And after Jeremiah spoke up, he was kicked out of the temple, and he was told never to return. Later that night, some of the king's men came to Jeremiah's house, and they beat him up in his sleep until he woke up. He approached his father because his father was looking at the whole thing. And his father said, Jeremiah said, "Why didn't you wake me up?" And his father just looked at him and walked off. He had, disowned him because he didn't want to, didn't want to follow their rules. He went by the rules of God. Okay. Okay. Jeremiah tried explaining to his friend the things God was doing in his life, but his friend couldn't understand him, and so he felt lonely and isolated, as if no one understood him. God sent angels to minister to him. God told him to speak his word. They would fight, the people would fight against him, but they should not prevail, is what God told him. Jeremiah pleaded with God for help because he didn't want to accomplish this mission alone. And so God sent him help, which made Jeremiah very happy because finally, here's someone wanting to help him on his mission and someone who believed in him and knew that he was a true prophet of God. Okay. Um, what I loved about this story is that he once he accepted his call on his life, he was willing to he was willing to pretty much not be accepted, not he was willing to be the outcast. Look what happened. His father, you know, his father disowned him. A lot of people in the town, they no longer liked him. He didn't mind being set aside, and he didn't mind speaking up for God. And that's how God wants us. And that's my favorite part that I like. He was a warrior to me. He was a warrior for Christ. Okay. Okay. And that's how God wants us. He wants us to be warriors for him, and not caring about what people think, because it's about him and it's about pleasing him. You know. And the word says we can't have two masters. We either gonna please one and disappoint the other. So Jeremiah did the right thing, and because of that, he was honored for that. You know, he was honored for that, even though he disappointed a lot of people, but he pleased God. That was the main thing, and that was the main thing that he did, and that I loved about him. You know, he was willing to sacrifice his relationships, and when it comes down to it, that's what that's what God want us to do. Sometimes it may hurt. It may hurt. It may disappoint some people, but we're gonna be rewarded by doing the will of God, by doing God's will, not our will. That's what it's all about, doing God's will. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the story. And like I said, God willing, tomorrow I'm gonna finish the other half. Amen. Okay. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I love you with the love of God, and God bless you.